Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to the Flipped Classroom. I am Mrs. Hebert, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your math notebook. I will also go through our first math lesson of the year. So when you open your math notebook, the cover should be on the left, and you should have a blank piece of paper on the right-hand side. The holes on the paper should be on the left-hand side of the paper, just to make sure you have the front. And so the first thing we're going to do is set up our table of contents at the beginning of the notebook, which will help you later on when you want to review your notes on a specific lesson. Okay, so on the very first page, what we're going to do is at the top, we're going to write the words table of contents. So we're going to make a title in the heading area of your paper. And I'm writing with a stylus, which isn't as neat as your pencil, but it gives you the right idea. So you're going to do table of contents. Then, using a ruler, you're going to create a line at the top and go from the left-hand red line over to the right-hand red line. And mine's a little high. Yours should really be sitting on that first line there, but it's okay if it's not exact. Then you're going to create 3 columns. So from the red line on the left, move over about an inch. That was my phone, sorry. And draw a vertical line down all the way to the bottom of the page. Then over on the right-hand side of the paper, go in from that faint red line from the other side, go in about an inch, and draw another vertical line all the way down. Then at the top, in the first column up above it at the top, you're going to title that lesson, and that's where you'll write the lesson number. In the second column, you're going to title that, you're going to put the title of the lesson. So just write the word title. And then in the third column on the right, you're going to write the page or pages. So we're going to title that page and then put the S in parentheses in case you have more than one page. Okay, then what we're going to do is on this table of contents, the very first lesson we're going to be doing today is lesson 1.1. So write that underneath the lesson. Then where it says title, we're going to call that integers and their opposites. And you'll be able to write it much smaller than I can. So you can get it on 1 or 2 lines. And this will be page 1 and page 2 of your notebook, pages 1 to 2. Now, the first page of a lesson will always be on the left-hand side of your notebook, and that will be where you take notes at home for homework using our videos. The second page of the lesson will be the page that you save for class notes and examples that we do in class. So most lessons will take 2 pages. So this is what your first entry should look like on the table of contents. And then don't forget that at the bottom of the page, if I can move this up a little bit, at the very bottom, you're going to, let's call that TOC for table of contents, page 1. And you can circle that. You can write it smaller than that. Okay, so when you finish writing that, this is a little neater picture of what your first table of contents page should look like. After you've completed the first table of contents, go ahead and turn the page, and it should look like this. So the back is blank. And what you're going to do is just create another table of contents on there. And you can call this one TOC, just abbreviate it. Okay. And you'll again have the lesson, the title, and the pages. And you'll do the line across the top. and your vertical lines to create 3 columns. And then at the bottom, you want to call this TOC page 2 and circle it. Okay, and then what I want you to do is go ahead and on the 3rd page do the same thing. I'm not going to copy it again onto the 3rd page because I think you can figure that out on your own. But make one more side with the lesson title and page and with the TOC at the top. And then at the bottom, on the bottom right hand corner, put TOC page 3. And then flip the page so that you're on the 4th side of the notebook, I believe. Yeah, it's the 4th side. It's the 2nd page, but it's the back of the 2nd page, and so we'll call that the 4th side because that's where you're going to start lesson 1. Okay, for lesson 1, and for most lessons, we're going to create a page that has 6 boxes. And you're going to be taking taking notes, in each box. You'll take notes in boxes 1 through 4, and then 5 and 6 will be examples that we do together when you're at home and you're listening to our videos. Then, so that will be the left-hand side of your paper. That's always going to be, the left side will always be the side where we take notes using the videos. The right-hand page, or the right side of the notebook, will always be the side where we take notes in class and do examples in class. So for right now, this is how you need to set up your notebook for lesson 1. And you'll notice that I'm on the back of the 3rd page of the table of contents. So I'm looking at, my holes should be on the right-hand side. I'm on the back of the 2nd actual page of the notebook. So you're going to create, using a ruler, you're going to create the lines and you're going to use 3 horizontal lines and 1 vertical line. And boxes 1 through 4 should be a little bit bigger than boxes 5 and 6 because 1 through 4 are for notes and you usually need a little more room. Now because of how I'm doing this and how Mrs. Rush and I are doing this, we'll be taking notes on a full piece of paper just because our stylus is so big and it's hard to write small. But we'll number them and each slide will be one of these boxes in your notebook. And so I'll show you what I mean when we move forward a little bit. But for right now, create 6 boxes. Okay, at the top of this page, you're going to write the title of this lesson and also the chapter since we're starting a new chapter. So at the very top, you're going to write chapter 1. And you can just put integers. Then, just above the line, this is lesson 1.1, which means chapter 1, lesson 1. And you're going to write integers and their opposites. And again, you can write it smaller and neater than I can. But integers and their opposites. It's supposed to be an I. It's supposed to be THEIR. And then at the bottom, you're going to number this just regular page 1, not TOC 1, just page 1. So a P period 1, and then circle it. Okay, on this page, so now we're flipping over. No, we're not flipping over, I'm sorry. So on this page, you really have 6 boxes, but because I can't write that small, I'm going to show you what to put in just the very first box, box number 1. So I'm just going to put a number 1 up here at the top so that you know that this is box number 1. And it's helpful to use a pencil so you can erase and in case you need more room or if you want to change something. But I'll put the notes for box number 1 on this whole page and then you'll just copy it into box number 1 on your page of your notebook. So the first thing we're going to do, we're talking about integers in this chapter. So the first thing we need to do is talk about what is an integer. Well, an integer is the set of all whole numbers and their opposites. So integers are not fractions or decimals. They're whole numbers like 0, 1, 2, and 3, and etc. Okay, and then their opposites, which are also integers, are negative numbers like 0, -1, -2, and -3. So we're just going to write that definition here of what integers are. And so then we're going to write down some examples of whole numbers. Whole numbers would be 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. They could go on indefinitely. And then their opposites, which we'll talk about more in this lesson, but the opposites of those whole numbers are going to be 0, -1, -2, -3, and so on. And those can continue indefinitely as well. So that is what you should have in box number 1. The next slide we'll do will be box number 2. Okay, so this slide is going to be what you put in box number 2. So I'm just going to number that number 2. And in box number 2, we're going to talk about the difference between positive and negative numbers. And most of you probably already know this, but as a review, positive numbers are numbers that are greater than 0, and negative numbers are numbers that are less than 0. So we're going to write those definitions. Even if you know them, you need to write the definitions. You always need to write what we're writing or take notes on what we're talking about, even if you know it already. Oops, and let me change that. I need to erase that part. I don't know why it's not erasing. Doesn't want to let me erase. Okay, well, for now, I'll cross that out. You can erase it. Okay, so examples of positive numbers would be 1, which you can write just as 1, or you can write a positive number with a plus sign before it. So 1 and +1. Or you could do 3 and +3. They're both positive. Or you could write 200 is a positive number, and you could write it either as just 200 or with a positive or plus sign before it. Negative numbers, again, like I said, are numbers less than 0. So let's write that definition. And again, hopefully you are much neater than I am. And examples of negative numbers would be -1, -3, and -200. And we always show negative numbers with a minus sign in front of them. That indicates that they are negative. Okay, moving on to box number 3. You're going to write the definition of opposites. And opposites are numbers that are the same distance from 0 on the number line, but they go in different directions. So let's write that down, and then I'll show you some examples. So examples of opposites would be 5 and negative 5, because 5 is 5 spaces from 0 on the number line, and to the right, because positive numbers go to the right of 0, and negative 5 is 5 spaces from the left, or to the left from 0. So they are called opposites. 3 and negative 3 would be opposites as well, because they're both 3 spaces from 0 on the number line. They just go in different directions. The positive 3 goes to the right of 0, and the negative 3 goes to the left of 0. It is important to know that 0 is its own opposite. So if you're asked to list 0's opposite, it would be 0. And that is box number 3. Okay, for box number 4, we're going to look at positive and negative numbers and opposites on number lines. So the first thing you need to do is draw a number line. And we're going to have that number line go from negative 4 to positive 4. That's the range of my number line. And so I'm going to call this negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and over here 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to change my color, and you can do the same if you'd like. And I'm going to, hopefully, as well as I can, I want to go just to the left of the 0, not including 0, but everything to the left of 0 is considered a negative number. Then I'm going to change my color to blue, and everything to the right of 0 is considered a positive number. So go ahead and draw that and show that on your notes. And then in the same box, we're going to go back to black, we're going to create another number line. And the range is still going to go from negative 4 to positive 4. And we're going to, I'm just going to show you how to graph some numbers. So if I were going to graph, let's say I was asked to graph 1, 3, and negative 2 on a number line. This is how I would do it, and I'm just going to use red. So 1 would be right here on 1, and the way you graph numbers on a number line is you just put a dot right on the horizontal line where the horizontal line meets the vertical line. So that's how I would graph positive 1. Positive 3 would be 3 spaces to the right of 0, and so it would just be on 3. Negative 2 would be 2 spaces to the left of 0, and it would be right there. So that's how I would graph those numbers, positive and negative. And that's box 4. Okay, for box 5, this is where we do some examples. And so you might get a question or a problem that says something like this. Graph these numbers on a number line. And that's just like what I just showed you in the other box. So they give you negative 4, 0, and then 2, and they want you to graph them on a number line. So you have to look, when they ask you to do this, and they want you to, if you have to draw your own number line, you have to look at the range of numbers you're being asked to graph. In this case, the smallest number that I'm being asked to graph is negative 4. That's the number with the least value. So I know that my number line has to go at least as far left to negative 4 to cover that. Then my highest number that I'm being asked to graph is a positive 2. So I know that past 0, I have to go at least 2 spaces to positive 2. I can go farther, but I don't have to because I'm only being asked to graph from negative 4 to 2. So if I did that, I would say there's about 1, and here's, 0, and here's 1, and then -1, -2, -3. But you have to look at what you're being asked to graph because your number line has to include the lowest and highest numbers on that you're being asked to graph. So again, we're going to graph, I'll use red. 0 is just right here. -4 is right here. And +2 is right here. And that's how you would graph those. So that's one type of problem. Pretty easy. Okay, and then box number 6, oops, I need to change my pen color. Box number 6 is another example that you might get, and they might just ask you to graph each number and its opposite. Okay, so graph each number and its opposite. And if they asked you to graph again, -4, 0, and 2, but this time they want you to graph the numbers and their opposites, you have to think carefully about the range on your number line because the smallest number they're asking you to graph is a -4, but they also want you to graph its opposite. So the opposite of -4 is +4. And so our range on our number line has to go from at least from -4 to +4. 0 is its own opposite, and then the opposite of +2 is -2. So as long as I graph between -4 and 4, as long as I label my number line with those numbers, I have the correct range. So I'm just going to go ahead and label my number line. And then I'm going to graph in red those numbers, so -4, 0, and 2. And then I'm going to graph their opposites in blue, just so you can see. So the opposite of -4 is +4. The opposite of 0 is just 0, so I really don't have to graph it again. And then the opposite of +2 is -2, just like that. And it's as easy as that. And so we've finished the first lesson. Okay, so when you're done, your page should look something like this. This is where I've written it in an actual notebook and it looks much neater. The colors on the number lines are probably will be different because I didn't have orange and things like that, but it's the same concept. But this is just to show you what your page should look like after a lesson is complete from the videos. Okay, and then remember the right-hand side in your notebook is always for class notes. So I'm going to have you just label this page for now, class notes at the top, and then at the bottom, write page 2 and circle it. And leave that page blank until you get to class. And when we are in class, we'll do some more examples. We'll review the lesson a little bit, and you can take notes if you want to and do some examples from class. And then you'll do an assignment in class based on the lesson you just learned. So well done. That's it for lesson 1.